So we've got a special Pick 5 sequence on Saturday. It's the Bayou Bluegrass Pick 5. Fairgrounds and Turfway have gotten together and put together what I think is a really nice Pick 5 sequence. Leg 1 is the 9th at the Fairgrounds. It's the New Orleans Classic. Leg 2 is the 11th at Turfway the Bourbonette. Leg 3 at Fairgrounds is the Fairgrounds Oaks. And then we've got the two Derby preps. Leg 4 is race 12 at Turfway. That's the Jeff Ruby. And finally, the anchor, leg 5 at Fairgrounds race 12 is the Louisiana Derby. So it's an all-stakes sequence, and I think it's a pretty exciting one. It should be a really fun betting race. Leg 1 is the New Orleans Classic. It's the 9th race on Fairgrounds Saturday card. It's running 1 1/8 for 4-year-olds and up. And we take a look at this one and touch upon a star. If you don't like this horse, you don't like horse racing. He is just awesome. Runs at the state bred level in Louisiana primarily, but this one's got a ton of class and a ton of grit. And I really like this horse. And he's moving up in class to a degree, but this is not the classiest field of graded stakes runners. And he's probably going to want to get on the engine, settle things down, and then try to take them all the way. And he's more than capable of doing it. There are some challengers on the early end. Black Belt, who just won his first two-turn effort after running primarily at 7 furlongs and a mile at Gulfstream. But that was a race where there was really nobody to challenge him. He did rate off a token speed front runner, but then once he took control, there was nobody who was going to come get him. Nobody did any running that day, so it's a little artificial in terms of a valid effort. And he generally likes to run a little bit on the quick side. Same thing with Best Actor. Best Actor last time had everything his own way. Nobody wanted to get to the lead. He got to the lead and he still couldn't hold it. He tends to get a little eager on the front end. I have a feeling that they're just going to let Touch Upon a Star get to the lead and think that they can take him down. I just have a hunch about that. I think Touch Upon the Star has the class and the grit to withstand any challenge he gets from either one of them, and I really like him in this spot. He's my pick to win. Gasoline coming second off the layoff. Didn't run a bad race. I've never been the biggest fan of this horse. He tends to disappoint when you expect him to run a big one, but he has a right to have he ran a pretty good third last time. Coming off the bench, and he does have the right to move forward, and he is capable of running a big one. Just sitting off the leaders, he will have a chance, and I think he's worth a use. Of the later runners, just to mention, Red Route 1, I think that they've been trying to run him a little closer to the pace this year, and it just hasn't worked out. I think there's a reason that they were having him come from the clouds last year. It just seems to have about 3 furlongs of really big run, and when he gets closer to the pace, it just saps him of it. So I don't like him in this spot, and so I'm not going to use him. Happy American had a little spurt last year, January and February, where he was running great at Fairgrounds, but he really didn't build on it for the rest of the year. And that last race, he didn't do much running at all. He made a little bit of a run and then just faded to the back. And I don't think he has a scenario here that's favorable to him, so I don't like him. Money Supply of the late runners I'll keep because he has the grit. He's won 5 races in a row. You can't overlook that. And I think of any horse, if possibly there is some kind of a pace stool or the pace gets a little hotter than expected, I think Money Supply is one that can run him down when you consider that Best Actor in the Mine Shaft had everything his own way, and Money Supply was still able to close into it and get him. Maybe he can do the same here. I am waiting for that race where Money Supply turns into a pumpkin, and maybe it'll happen on Saturday. But of the late runners, I think he'd have the best shot. Leg 2 is the Bonet Oaks. It's ungraded at $300,000. It's the 11th race on Turfway Saturday card. Always remember, they're running during the daytime for Turfway on Saturday. It's at 1 1/16 on the all-weather for 3-year-old fillies. And as we mentioned in our individual posting, I think the weather is going to be a big factor here. The colder it gets, the easier it is for front runners to run on synthetic surface because it gets compacted, and it's like running, just as an analogy I've heard from my good friend Matthew DeSantis, it's like running on the beach close to the water as opposed to up nearer the shore. So from that perspective, Maxi Superfly has familiarity over the track, just came off her best effort, and I kind of like her a little bit over Pink Polka Dots, who is not running synthetic yet. And because I think that it'll be a favorable scenario, Maxi Superfly has a chance to factor in this race. Alpine Princess is dual entered in the Bonet Oaks. I think this is a more logical spot because Alpine Princess has had trouble when moving into the graded stakes company. So here you get a bit of a relief, and running just off the pace should be in really good position. Alpine Princess can get on the lead. We've seen her do it. And so either way, I think she has a class edge over quite a few others in here. And I like her to win this race if she runs in it. Of the other runners, moving on up, and Everland, I think, Everland is a nice horse. I didn't think he ran a bad race against Maxi Superfly last time. I just think the track was against him. And it's probably going to be against him here. Moving on up, Kate debuted at 3 with a career high. Looks to be in good form. With another move forward, could factor in this race at a price, but I don't think is a candidate to win. Everland will need some kind of a pace scenario to occur, but I don't think it's going to happen. So I think Everland is more likely for under. Now, of the later runners who I think has a shot, it's Trial. For a couple reasons. Number one, he's got the best Turfway Park jockey on him, Luan Machado. Anybody who's been playing Turfway, as I have a lot this year with my friends over at Trust the Profits in the Cocktail Lounge, knows that Luan you have to include on every ticket. He just knows how to run Turfway, and he gets so much out of a horse. Trial is a later runner, but he's more of a one-paced type of runner, and I don't think he's terribly pace-dependent. So I think he'll just keep running. And again, with Luan aboard, who can get the most out of a horse at a price, I think Trial has a really good shot here. I'll just mention Band of Gold, as I know he's a horse who's probably going to take a lot of money because he did win the Martha Washington over at Oaklawn. But in the Honeybee, he didn't do much running at all. And the main reason is he didn't have pace to run to. He is, or she is rather, pace dependent. And I do not think that scenario is going to unfold here for the reasons stated, particularly because I think the track will be conducive to early speed. So Band of Gold, particularly at a short price, which you never want Kenny McPeaks when they're the chalk or short, I'll toss. Leg 3 is the Fairgrounds Oaks. It's a Grade 2 run it's the 11th race on Fairgrounds Saturday card, running a mile and a 16th for 3-year-old fillies, and this is an Oaks prep, of course. You'll note that if Alpine Princess runs in this race, I'm tossing, and the reason being is that she just doesn't seem like a graded stakes horse to me. Her efforts moving up to graded stakes have not been good, so that's why I think the Bourbonette is more likely for her. Of the early runners, I like Our Pretty Woman. This is a horse they've spent a fair amount of money on. The last race, she showed significant improvement class-wise, and in a race that was a higher class than she had run at before. Always a good thing to look at. And if you consider this field where there aren't a lot of pace pressers that are going to bother her, she's likely to get the lead all to herself. And if that's the case, she's got a really good chance to wire this field. Midsummer March is a horse I think is just going to keep running. Seems a little one pace to me. I don't look as a winning candidate here, but is one perhaps for your gimmicks, the exotics I might think about for under at a price. The two primary win candidates in here have to be Tarifa and Intricate. And of the two, I like Intricate the most, mainly because that Goldenrod was a classier race than I think Tarifa has been running in. And when you consider West Omaha really didn't do very much running in the Honeybee, I think it says that maybe that wasn't such a great win for Tarifa. Whereas Intricate, coming off the bench, I thought ran a good second and probably needed a race. Fully expect, with Brendan Walsh as the trainer and Tyler Gaffalione aboard, Brendan Walsh is 20% second off the layoff. I think this situation sets up very well for Intricate, and I really like her chances here. Lucky Gut Game, we throw in the mix, closer at Fairgrounds, and the lone closer, which is always a pretty good thing. Probably not going to win. In fact, I don't think really can, but underneath, very possible. So to me, Our Pretty Woman and Intricate are the primary threats to win this race. Leg number 4 is the Jeff Ruby Stakes, the infamous race that gave us 2 Phils who finished second in the Derby last year, and 2 years ago, Rich Strike, who won the Derby at 81-1. Thank you very much. This is the 12th race on Turfway's daylight card on Saturday. It's running 1 1/8 on the all-weather for 3-year-olds. And if we look at this race, again, with the forecast in mind, maybe favoring early runners a little bit more than usual, Northern Flame is probably the lone speed. Now, I say that because he seems most likely that would be the tack he'll take. He usually runs just off of it, but this might be a scenario where going to the lead is a better idea. That's just me spitballing, but this is a horse who's in pretty good form. He just seems to be a cut below the better 3-year-olds, but in this field and in this race, I think he's a horse that you certainly have to use. Freedom Principle and Woodcourt, really all we're thinking about here is great Turfway jockeys. You got the Biscuit, Adam Beskiza on Freedom Principle, and you got Luann Machado on Woodcourt. Woodcourt, he surprised me last time. He had it all his own way prior to the Rebel Stakes, and that usually doesn't bode well when stepping up in class to a graded stakes, but he ran a really good race. So perhaps the light bulb has gone off, and in this field, I think Woodcourt is one, particularly with Luann Machado in the irons, is one that you want to think about, probably more for underneath than anything else, but one to consider. Dancing Groom, to me, is, if you're looking for a big upset candidate, Dancing Groom is the one, and here's why. A couple years ago, there was a horse named Congruent, rest in peace, and he had a very similar type of race record that Dancing Groom did. On dirt, it was okay. Turf, it was okay, and they kept trying to find a place for him to run. They finally put him on synthetic, and he won. I believe it was the Battaglia or the Jeff Ruby. I can't remember which, but Dancing Groom looks like the kind of horse that maybe it's just the surface. He's a late runner. He will be coming from the clouds more than likely, but you're going to get a price on him, and who knows? I think this is a race that kind of requires value to a degree, and Dancing Groom, I think, offers it. So probably more a candidate for underneath, but if you're looking for a bomb, I think Dancing Groom might be the one. Seize the Gray came off the bench for the coach last time at Oaklawn on the dirt and looked like a really good horse. You always love to see the career high coming off the bench for a 3-year-old. He just really ran a solid race, and it was a big step up from what he had been running at before, and that tells me that he's had some time to grow and fill out, grow into himself, and provided he takes to the synthetic, I really like his chances here second off the layoff, and hopefully he'll get a decent price. I've been hearing that that may be to the contrary, particularly with my racehorse owning him. And my pal Malathot, I wish you luck with him, but it's not often he and I are on the same page, but that's a whole other story. But Seize the Gray here, I really like to win this race. Agate Road has too many seconds for me. I think this horse usually leaves himself too much to do late. Okay, he closed against the bias in the Sam F. Davis. Pretty good effort, but the fractions didn't scream to me that this horse is a Derby type of horse. He's had a lot of his races on turf, so synthetic's not going to be a problem for him, I don't think. But I just have a feeling he's going to be flying late, and he's going to get up for second because that's what he does. That's really, I just not a big fan of this horse, and So I think underneath is more likely. Conversely, Endlessly, I like a lot. And this horse, granted, is coming from California where the comp is suspect. That's true. Won't deny anybody who argues that. But consider this horse likes to win, has multiple wins, just debuted at 3 on synthetic in the El Camino Real and won. I think this horse is coming to this race in really good form. And of the late runners, I think this one is a really big threat to take this one down. The track may be against any of the late runners here, and that's why I think you move up Seize the Gray a little bit. But Endlessly, to me, is a very logical horse to look at in this race. So finally, we come to Leg 5, the Louisiana Derby. It's the 12th race on Fairgrounds Saturday card. It's run at a mile and 3/16 for the 3-year-olds. And we look at this race. I think this is very similar, a race shape very similar to the Risen Star. I don't see anybody here who's going to bother Track Phantom enough that he won't get the lead again and have things his own way. He's going to slow things down, and then it'll be just a question if he's good enough. I didn't think he ran a bad Risen Star. I just think Sierra Leone was a better horse. He closed into a slow pace. Track Phantom had it all his own way. If you look at his fractions, they were excellent. His final fraction was very good. He's probably more one pace, so maybe he didn't have that extra gear to fight off Sierra Leone, but Sierra Leone's not running this race. And so to me, Track Phantom, this is has it all his own way, and if he's good enough, I think he can win this race. Some of the other horses in here, maybe has a little more of a challenge on the front end from Antiquarian, but I think it's a little early for Antiquarian to be running in a graded stakes. We've seen too often these horses who win their maidens against JV Company at 3, and then they throw them in a stakes and they bomb. And I think Antiquarian's a pretty good horse, and if you want to take a shot, given the inside post, if Antiquarian can get to the lead, maybe has a chance, but I don't see it. Hall of Fame, I just thought was a real bomb in the Risen Star. Just didn't, a dud of a race, had every chance, and just didn't fire. I think it's too early for a gun runner at this stage, and maybe later on this is going to be a good horse, but I don't see it here. Real Man Violin did not do terribly well in the Risen Star, but it was the first off the bench. If this horse can come back to the form he displayed in the Risen Star, or the Jockey Club rather, and takes a move forward, maybe he has a chance. Now, I didn't necessarily like the Jockey Club because I think he had every chance to win this race and he couldn't, and that tells me maybe he's a cut below, but also maybe he needed a race and maybe he will move forward. And if he does, being a runner up and near the pace, he's got a chance. Common Defense had everything his own way in the Rebel Stakes. He saved ground all the way around the track, and he did show improvement. So that gives me the feeling that perhaps with another step forward, he could be potentially win this race or get involved in it. But I'm just not sold completely on him, given the fact I thought in his race prior to the Rebel Stakes, he was going to run a big one, and he didn't. So he's got to prove it to me again, but I think he's one that you can comfortably use. Tuscan Gold broke very slow in his maiden race, and he did close well, but I think the race shape here, if he does that again, I think it's going to be against him. He certainly has talent, but he didn't really beat a whole lot last time, and again, that's another scenario I just don't like, is horses with big maiden wins moving into graded stakes company. I think he has some talent. He likely will break better, which he'll need to do. And being trained by Chad Brown, that's entirely possible. But I think underneath is probably more likely. Agate Road, we just talked about. The Jeff Ruby, he's dual entered in. If I were Todd Pletcher and Mike Rapoli, I would put him in the Jeff Ruby, but I'm not them. This horse, again, needs too much to do late. And he's got a scenario here that isn't favorable, and he's not Sierra Leone more than anything else. So underneath, probably more likely. Catching Freedom is just green. Hopefully, this start he will shed some of that immaturity. If he does, he has a chance, but he will be coming from behind, and I think that's not really the place to be. And I don't necessarily think he's made a move forward in the Risen Star because he pretty much ran the same race that he did in the Gun Runner, fraction-wise. So that may be he may be plateauing. He certainly has some talent, and I think he's one that you can comfortably use. But I'm just not really sold on his win chances. Now, Anna Marie had a great 2-year-old year, and I really liked that progression he had. Came off the bench in the Risen Star, and I don't think he ran badly. He broke slowly, totally understandable, but he did close with purpose. So that tells me that with a race under his belt, of any of the late runners who's going to track down Track Phantom, I think it's Anna Marie. So to me, Track Phantom is the one to beat, mainly because of the race shape, but Real Men Violin and Anna Marie, I think, are ones that have a very good chance to take him down. So if we look at our ticket, we'll see leg 1 in the New Orleans Classic. I'm going to single Touch Upon a Star. I love that horse, and it's a make or break race. We'll right off the bat. If he wins, we're in good shape. If he doesn't, we're done. That's just the way it is. And hopefully they'll pay 4 out of 5 in this one. In leg 2, the Bourbonette, we're going to spread a little bit with 1, 4, 7, and 10. Leg 3, the Fairgrounds Oaks, we're going to use Intricate and Our Pretty Woman. I think they both have the logical best shot. You want to throw in Tarifa in there, okay, but this is more about taking a stand for me, and I just like Intricate better. The Jeff Ruby Stakes, we're going to use 2, 9, and 10. And then the Louisiana Derby, we're going to use 7, 9, and 12. So that's 4 times 2 is 8 times 3 is 24 times 3 is $72 on a $1 base. So obviously at 50 cents, it's 36. And that way you can plant your flag. And if you want to go at the 50 cent level, you lose a whole lot. But I think that gives us a pretty good chance. And Touch Upon a Star does his thing, then we're looking pretty good. We've got options for the other 4 legs. So should be a fun sequence nonetheless.